Hey there, welcome back to Pepper Geek, or should I say, Chili Geek. So we get corrected all the time, it's a chili, it's not a pepper. And while we are well aware of this misnomer, with Columbus Day coming tomorrow, we thought we'd take a deep dive into the history of the name of our beloved chili pepper, and so let's do that. So let's start with the facts about each of those words, and we'll start with pepper, which comes from the South Indian Tamil word for long pepper, pipali, which is a plant in the same family as black pepper, and so pepper basically means black pepper, which I have right here. Chili, on the other hand, comes from the Nahuatl word chili, which is what Central American natives have been growing for millennia, these things right here. So why do we call our chilies peppers? Well, it dates back to Columbus and his expedition across the Atlantic Ocean. So let's talk about what Columbus was doing. Why did he even cross the ocean? What was he trying to get at? Well, basically, the trade of spices from Asia to Europe, where Columbus was from, was very expensive. They had to go across the land, and there were a lot of obstacles along the way. It was very treacherous. And so Columbus had the brilliant idea of sailing west from Europe to try to reach Asia. And so he was looking for the East Indies along these expeditions. And when he made landfall in 1492, he thought he was in the East Indies. And so while he was in the East Indies, he was searching around for, quote, pearls, precious stones, gold, silver, spices, and the other objects and merchandise whatsoever that he had promised to his monarchs. One of the spices that Columbus was familiar with and was looking for was pepper, also known as black pepper or piper nigrum. And this is something that he would have tasted a lot, and he would be familiar with the sort of spicy aroma and flavor that comes from black pepper. But he didn't find black pepper. What he did find was ají or chilies. And so he was tasting things like this, hot, spicy peppers that sort of reminded him of black pepper. And so he just went ahead and called that pepper. And so Columbus actually wrote about his expeditions thoroughly. He talked about pretty much everything that he encountered along the way, and it's a pretty terrifying read. I wouldn't recommend it, but I went through it a little bit just to see if there's anything in there about peppers or chilies, and I found this interesting quote. He says, "There is also plenty of ají, which is their pepper, which is more valuable than pepper, and all the people eat nothing else, it being very wholesome." So that entry into his journal definitely indicates that he knew that it wasn't black pepper that he was eating, but he just went ahead and called it pepper anyway because it was their pepper. It's their version of pepper, so it's pepper. So he took the pepper back to Europe, to Spain, and it spread very quickly from there in popularity all across Europe and eventually to Asia and Africa and eventually, of course, around the world. Now, it's not exactly clear how chili peppers made their way to America, whether they came from Europe or they came directly from the Caribbean, but either way, the misnomer of pepper stuck, and so we're stuck with this chili pepper mistake, and to this day, over 500 years later, we're still calling chilies peppers. So with the history lesson out of the way, you might be wondering, why did we call our channel Pepper Geek if we had this knowledge? We knew about the misnomer, but we live in America, and I sort of compared this situation to when people call a pepper a fruit or a tomato a fruit. Technically, you're correct, but in our context, it really isn't. If you're in a culinary space, it's a vegetable. And so we live in America, we're steeped in history, and it's important to understand it, and I hope this has been enlightening to some of you, but we're not gonna start calling our peppers chili. We didn't grow up calling them chilies, and so it just doesn't feel quite right. But hey, we don't care what you call them. If you call them chili with an E or chili with 2 L's and an I, or you call them peppers, they're still the same amazing genus of capsicum. It's the same plants. What I do think is important is to recognize that all chilies came from Central America and South America. All of these amazing peppers, these jalapenos, to these new crosses that we're making here, to this giant red habanero, everything can be traced back to that region, and that's pretty incredible. I think we can all agree that chili peppers are amazing. We'll see you in the next video.